welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual, and I share my asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. If you haven't already subscribed, hit that great big subscribe button right here, right now, if you're on YouTube, and don't forget every time I go live like now or post a new video. And if you're on Facebook, because I'm also streaming this to Facebook, please like Asexualise page, follow the Asexualise page, and click the follow button underneath the live videos to get notified of every time I go live. So in today's episode for Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month, we are in fact on day 17, but it's gone into 18 in the UK. But if we work on USA time, we're on day 17. And so Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month is all about celebrating our diversity across the asexual spectrum and our differences within it. And today, we thank you for the thumbs up. We're going to be discussing the difference between sexual arousal and sexual attraction, which is what a lot of asexuals tend to have a problem with. And particularly a lot of people who aren't asexual don't seem to understand the difference. So I just want to dive deep into the Asexual Perspectives book. Don't forget you can grab a copy of this on Amazon, Barnes & Noble or Waterstones. And I'm going to be reading from it excerpts tonight on that very question. So basically the question was, do you think sexual arousal and sexual attraction are the same or different? So in this book, there's 47 different asexual stories. As you can see, this copy's very worn because I read from it a lot. And it tells my own personal story in the book as well. So I'm going to be reading some different parts of people's stories out. So when I say stories, they're stories scattered amongst all the answers to their questions. So this person who's C.A. Altman said, again, different concepts. As before, sexual attraction is wanting to perform sexual acts with another specific person or people. Sexual arousal is just the arousal state of a body. It's a physiological response, not necessarily a mental or emotional one. If you fondle genitals long enough, there will be a response in almost all people, no matter what the fondled thinks of the fondler or the fondling. Now, this is so true, and it's something that people don't really discuss because obviously this is a sensitive topic for some people. But, you know, like, usually if you touch and feel and do stuff to genitalia, usually the majority of people will have some sort of response to that because, you know, it's a response to stimuli. That's not, however, the case for everyone because some asexuals report that they just don't get aroused whatsoever. I itch there. And so basically, you know, they report that they don't get any arousal whatsoever. So I do know asexuals like this, but, you know, they are, in general, people as a whole, including asexuals, still fully functional down there, still working down there. And so, you know, if genitalia is touched, usually there is some sort of response to it. Okay, but like I said, not all asexuals feel the same way. So we mustn't class everyone as, you know, identical or that actually happens, right? But it is true of a lot of people, right? Okay, and just because you're asexual doesn't mean to say that you don't experience arousal, which is the main thing. You know, people think that if you're asexual, no asexual at all ever experiences arousal, but this simply isn't true. For me personally, I have high levels of arousal, but zero sexual attraction. So even if I'm kissing a guy, some guys I can get, if I'm kissing some guys, sometimes I can get aroused, other times I don't these days. It depends on the level of intimacy I allow that person to have with me and how much body contact, even if it's through clothes, I allow them to have. I think that plays quite a big factor in it. And also how aesthetically attracted to them I am, and kind of the atmosphere and all this type of thing. So, but I can get aroused just thinking about kissing. Like, I love kissing so much. It's kind of a huge arousal trigger without anyone being involved in just the word kissing. So it's kind of crazy. And that's what a lot of people don't know. They think that arousal has to be physical touching. But I know from personal experience, you don't have to touch someone or certain people, for example, myself, to be aroused. I can get aroused just by my thoughts without even doing anything. and also some imagery that I'd rather not see, but sometimes I see it by accident if it's in my Twitter feed, for example, and sometimes I do get aroused, but I don't want to do anything with someone else. I only think about doing stuff with myself. And I think that's quite true for quite a number of asexuals. If we want to kind of like relieve our arousal, we usually would do it ourselves through masturbation, because, you know, we don't really want or need another person involved because we're not sexually attracted to anyone. Obviously, asexuality is a huge spectrum, though, and there'll be some people on the grey end of the asexual spectrum who do experience sexual attraction under limited, rare, or specific circumstances, or they do experience it but not enough to want to act on it. Now, the people on the more grey end of the asexual spectrum, some of those are much more likely to participate in sexual acts, sexual activities, you know, more likely to take part in touching and more physical intimacy than those, say, who are more on the pure end of the asexual spectrum that experience no sexual attraction whatsoever. So this is very interesting. Right, so we're going to be looking at Dee's story now. Do you think sexual attraction and sexual arousal are different or the same thing? Yes, sexual arousal is a state in which your body can be. Sexual attraction is a desire to be sexual with another specific person. They often go hand in hand, but not always. So yes, usually the majority of time, sexuals would you know, think that if, you know, they experience sexual attraction, then the arousal and attraction is linked. So if I said to a sexual person that I experience arousal, well, I don't say a sexual arousal to me because I don't think of myself as being sexual, although I have sexual behaviour. But I use this word sexual sparingly with me. But, you know, so I just say arousal, right? And so, you know, like asexuals can feel arousal, but like if I try to explain that to a sexual person, like I can explain it, I do explain it, but usually for sexuals the arousal goes with the sexual attraction. So if you are thinking about getting into a relationship with a sexual person and you're asexual who is like that, or if you're thinking about, you know, just in general, like spending some time with a sexual person, maybe you don't want to get into a relationship with them, but maybe you want to have some intimacy, you have to just let them know that it doesn't matter how aroused you get, you don't want sex, because, you know, if they're touching your body and they think you're acting as though you want sex, you have to let them know that you don't, if you don't want it, right? You have to be very strong and strict with your boundaries, because, you know, if not, they'll take advantage of you, a lot of them, unfortunately, right? It's not good. So what you have to do is you should understand your own body and as much as possible and know what can happen, you know. But sexual attraction and sexual arousal, for a lot of sexuals, they go hand in hand. They automatically think, oh, if we're kissing, it'll lead to arousal. The arousal will lead to wanting intercourse with them. And that's kind of like the sexual arousal for them is like a prequel to sex. It's like preparing the body sexually for them to have sex with you. That's what a lot of sexuals come from. That's the place they come from in their mind. That's what they believe. That's kind of what they've been taught by society. And so, and on Facebook, I want to say hello to Karen. Lots of love to you. Hello, my friend. Lots of love. I'm streaming this to it's nice to see you, Karen. So I'm streaming this to YouTube and Facebook at the same time at the moment, simultaneously. Really nice to see you. So Karen's on Facebook, everyone. Woohoo! I reached 1,000 subs yesterday, so I'm really excited about that. So yeah, like I was saying, with sexuals, they believe that, you know, and they're taught, and society teaches them that, you know, arousal is a state the body is put in order to receive sex, in order to prepare for sex. So we have to be very careful and very cautious when we're actually talking to, you know, sexuals, or if we're thinking about having any intimacy with them, that we're crystal clear. If we experience arousal but no sexual attraction, we don't want it to lead to sex, that we explain this and express ourselves, right? It's very important that you express yourself. You know, don't be afraid to say what you actually are and what you're like, right? Because we don't want misunderstandings. We don't want misconceptions. We don't want people to think something's going to happen when it's not. It's better to be very straight and upfront with them, because you don't want to be put in situations that are ugly for you, right? We want to have pleasant physical interactions, whether we do that with another asexual person or whether we do that with a sexual person. You know, everything should be relaxed as much as possible, and you should be able to be yourself, right? So it's very, very important. Hi, Karen. It's very, very important that we are very, very honest and that we're open about, how our asexuality is for us, right? So we're going to Adelaide's story now. And Adelaide, do you think sexual arousal and sexual attraction are the same or different? I think they're different, but as I do not feel either, I do not feel qualified to comment on it. Yes, some asexuals, they don't experience any arousal or any sexual attraction whatsoever, like I was saying. None, diddly squat. So some people might find this hard to believe, but I've got a friend and, page number, Karen. This is on page 137 of the printed book. The Adelaide's story. Yeah, 137. I think they're different, but but as they do not feel either, they don't feel qualified to comment on it. So yeah. So in terms of sexuals, they usually experience both, but asexuals, like I said, a lot of asexuals, they could still experience arousal, but without the sexual attraction, right? But the thing is some asexuals, they don't experience any sexual attraction, any sexual arousal whatsoever. So it's like speaking to a foreign language, right? They just don't feel that way. And so, you have to understand that we can't say every asexual is the same. We can't say, oh, every asexual doesn't experience arousal or every asexual does, because they're variations, which is why I did this book, to celebrate our diversity across the asexual spectrum and our differences within it. So we are now going on to page, we're now going on to page 159 of the printed book. If you've got asexual perspectives, I know Karen has. So 159, and this is Zoe's story. So do you think sexual arousal and sexual attraction are different or the same? I'd have to say not the same. Based on the fact that people will get aroused by watching porn. They do not know the person they are watching. They do not know the person they are watching, have not perceived them in the real world. How could they be attracted to someone they've never met in the flesh, no pun, or even spoken to? Well, yes, it is possible to be attracted to someone you've never met in person before, because people do it all the time, People can be sexually attracted to people on TV, in posters, when they meet them in person. They don't have to meet someone in order to be attracted to them. That doesn't just matter for, or doesn't just apply for sexual attraction. It applies for multiple attractions. Like I can get aesthetically attracted to someone I've never met in person before. I can get romantically attracted to someone I've never met in person before, right? And I don't watch porn personally. It's not my thing. I'm not into it. Don't touch it. Don't go near it, right? But, they are right, though, that people do get aroused by porn, right? So, but I personally hate porn. So that's just not even in my remit. So I think what they're trying to say is, that someone can't experience sexual attraction by someone they've not met, but clearly they can actually do that. There's tons of people that get sexually attracted to people on TV because they're like, oh, I want sex with that person. So actually, for me personally, the TV and the porn and that type of thing, and them saying that they have to see someone in person to be attracted to them is actually not true for quite a lot of people. But I do take that point that, the arousal is not the same as sexual attraction, because I think the same. I mean, arousal, like I said, is a feeling in the genitalia basically, and sexual attraction is when you're sexually attracted towards a specific person, so you basically want sex with a specific person, right? Whereas arousal is just a genital thing going on. So yes, we are going to go now to Fiora's story. This is on page 217 of the printed edition. So Fiora says, no, I don't think they're the same, or at least not for asexuals. Aces can be aroused by someone, but it's just a physical response and not connected to any sort of desire for the person they're aroused by. So I would actually agree with that as a general broad term statement. that asexuals usually have arousal as a physical response. And it's not connected to any sort of desire for the person they're aroused by, as in desire for sex with them. Now, obviously, if someone's on the grey end of the asexual spectrum and they do experience sexual attraction under limited rare specific circumstances, then that could be like the one person out of like billions or out of lots of people they meet who they just happen to be sexually attracted to and aroused by at the same time, right? So, you know, it's not true for every single person that is on the asexual spectrum, but, you know, in general, I think that's quite noticeable. The difference between asexuals is that we don't usually have any sort of desire to have sex with the person that we are aroused by. Having said this, I think that asexuals who are sex positive and who do have sex, I think then that they can obviously get aroused, and then I wouldn't say desire to have sex. Hi, Sparky, nice to see you on YouTube. Nice to see you. So in terms of asexuals, I was saying, you know, I don't think asexuals in general would have any sort of desire for the person they're aroused by. But those asexuals that are sex positive, those ones that have sex, then they could actually get aroused as part of being, you know, touching. And while I always say they don't desire the sex, as in it's not an innate need of theirs, they might say, I would like to have sex with my partner because I want more physical intimacy. Or, you know, or I'm happy to have sex because I'm fine with it, you know, even though I don't experience sexual attraction. So we have to understand that there are asexuals that are all different across the asexual spectrum, and we have to understand that these things aren't the same for everyone. But definitely arousal and sexual attraction are two things that are separate, but a lot of people, for example, who are sexual put them together, but they are two separate things that can be joined or can be completely separate. So yeah, also, you know, for me personally, like I can get aroused by kissing a guy or by not having any physical intimacy with anyone and just thinking about kissing. So I don't have to have anyone involved to get aroused. But obviously, if I'm kissing a guy really passionately and I've got, say, bodies intertwined with him with clothes on a bed, say he's my boyfriend, I'm doing that, then I could have a desire, you know, to for him maybe. Like, I don't really get desire to be touched these days, but, you know, it could lead to desire of other things because he's doing that. And also I could be like aroused by him in that moment because of what he's doing. Whereas if I'm on my own, I would just be, you know, not needing anyone else involved. And I don't need anyone else involved to be aroused or to relieve my arousal. But if I'm kissing a guy, I might naturally relieve my arousal through kissing. So, you know, and also it can be the fact that the guy's kissing me that is causing my arousal, if you know what I mean. So I'm not aroused to him specifically, but the action he is doing, the kissing motion, the close body contact, right? So it gets a bit complicated because obviously I'm not sexually attracted to anyone. I'm not like needing to have sex, wanting to have sex in my case, or anything like that, but I can get aroused from the physical intimacy act that the person's doing at the time, which would be a guy because I'm not interested in women like that, right? So I hope that's made sense because it's quite complex sometimes, right? So we are going on to look at now page 252. This is David's story. I like David. He's a nice person. I know David personally, though we haven't messaged for ages. So do you believe sexual arousal and sexual attraction are the same or different? I think they're different, says David. I would expect sexual arousal to occur prior to or in anticipation of a sexual act, whereas sexual attraction is more of an acknowledgement of a potential. So yes, that's what I was saying earlier, that sexuals, like for example heterosexuals in general, they expect sex usually after sexual arousal has occurred, because for them it's a prequel to sex. They are preparing your body. If they touch you, they're preparing your body for sex. this is why people usually try to arouse the other person, the other partner, because they want to have sex with them. So when I was in a sexual relationship for years, the guy at the time who would come up when I was washing up the dishes, and I hate washing up, he would come up behind me and start trying to touch my breasts, for example. I know I'm talking very intimately here, but I want to get my point across. And I wasn't interested in the sex. I would rather have just like stayed doing the washing up, listening to music in my headphones. I hate washing up. But, you know, for him, that was like a prequel to wanting to have sex with me. That was like a sign, like, come on, I want to touch you, baby. Then let's go into the bedroom. Let's then lead to sex. And so you have to understand that that's what a lot of sexuals do. And if you're an asexual who enjoys arousal, enjoys the bodily sensations of arousal, and you know, maybe even like some touching, or maybe you don't like any touching, you have to let a person know that you're with that is the end result for you, either the arousal or the touching. You know, you have to let people know, the person you're with or people you're with, if you're polyamorous, you have to let them know what your physical intimacy levels are, like the up to, you know, like the limit. So this is very important for establishing boundaries in relationships and being assertive with yourself. So for me personally these days, I'm not into a guy touching me. If I was in a relationship with a guy for a long time, an asexual guy, for example, I would rather be with an asexual guy. Maybe after a while I might be okay with some touching, but at the moment I don't feel comfortable with any of that anymore. And so it would be really important, like, if I was kissing an asexual guy, I'm still going to likely get aroused, even though I'm not interested in sex, even though it would be with an asexual guy, because just because I would be with an asexual guy doesn't mean to say I wouldn't still have those physical responses. And so, you know, with an asexual guy, it could be that both of our intimacies is just like enjoying being aroused together with clothes on and just enjoying that feeling of being aroused. Or maybe we both like that feeling of being aroused, but don't want to take it any further. For some other asexual partners, maybe it would be aroused and then touching and feeling the body, but then again, no sex, right? But then if you're with a sexual person, they would likely want to do the arousal, the touching, and the sex. So you just have to make sure that whoever you get into a relationship with, or whoever you decide to have intimacy with, physical intimacy with, or whatever level in terms of physical touching, that you allow them to understand you and set your boundaries so that you don't get into sexual situations that are going to be no good for you. You need to add an extra layer of like comfort and support and safety to yourself, and let them understand that this is your limit, right? Like sometimes I feel like really overwhelmed by the feeling of being aroused. Like the feeling of being aroused for me is just too sexual in my body, and I just kind of want to run and cuddle my cuddly toys because it's just like, I can't be dealing with this. It's just too much. And then other times I like the feeling. I'm like, oh, this is quite nice. This is quite nice. And, you know, especially if I was kissing a guy and maybe it was just, you know, just feeling natural release and stuff. So, you know, that's kind of nice. But, you know, so I get like this. I get like fluctuations in whether I like quite a bit of arousal or whether I'm not liking it and feeling uncomfortable because I feel like it's too sexual for me. So, you know, it's kind of like, because I'm a sex repulsed asexual but had sex in the past, I think it's kind of like a middle ground where sometimes I feel kind of like weirded out by my own too high levels of arousal, and other times I'm comfortable with it. So I think you've really got to accept yourself for who you are and just let the person know that you're with, that, you know, this is how I could get, especially if it's an asexual person as well, because when I've been looking for an asexual partner in the past, it's been important that I've told them, and, you know, have revealed to them my intimate stuff about myself in terms of arousal, because what you don't want to do is get into a relationship with someone or have a potential relationship with someone and you be completely physically incompatible. Liam, hi Sandra, you're a beautiful, amazing person. The world needs more people like you to promote asexuality. Oh, thank you, Liam. Lots of love. I love that. Very nice. You've made me smile. I love you on here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, as always. Lots of love. Lots of love. And so, you know, I think it's very important that if you are looking for a relationship, I know Liam's not looking for a relationship, but if you are a person who's looking for a relationship or any type of physical intimacy, I think it's very important you explain this to this person. And like I said, even when I was looking for an asexual relationship in the past, then I would, you know, if it got to the stage where I was thinking about a serious relationship, that I would let the person know how my body might be. So if I'm kissing them, you know, I'd let them say that I do experience arousal. Well, the worst thing I could do is like get with another asexual, and either that person is just too sexual for me in behavior, or I'm too sexual in behavior for them, and I go over their boundaries, or they go over my boundaries. That's why you have to establish these boundaries first, and you have to explain how you might act. So if I'm kissing a guy passionately, I might get very aroused, and an asexual guy's got to be able to handle that and be able to be comfortable with it, because I can't help being aroused like they couldn't help being aroused. Like, you've got to understand as well, like, how do you feel about if your partner got aroused? If I was with a guy, how would I feel if he's physically showing that he's aroused? You know, like erection, for example. Like, I'm okay and comfortable with that. You know, like I know it's natural for a guy to be like that over me. And he might even do that if he's asexual. Just because he's asexual doesn't mean to say he can't get an erection over me, right? So I'm quite comfortable with that. I know that's probably likely going to happen. And because I've been in sexual relationships in the past, I'm kind of used to that. But it's very important that you discuss all this beforehand, because I've had some asexuals that have said to me, who are heteromantic guys, who said to me I'd be too sexual for them. And then I've had other heteromantic asexual guys on the more grey end of the asexual spectrum, and I'm not sexual enough for them, you know. And you know, it's because they like touching, and some of them like want sex as well, and they don't want to be in a relationship without sex, even though they're grey asexual. So that's kind of a shocker for me. So yes, and then we're going to go to right. So this is at the back of the book, further towards the back, and this is page 391 in the printed edition, and this is Cassie's story. So oh, have I gone past it? Well, it would have been Cassie's story. I don't know what's happened. I thought I had the page, but oh, there it is. There it is. Sorry, I told them about the wrong page. This is 386. Oops. Karen, I love Eddie's answers to the positives of being asexual. Oh. Eddie's answers. I'm not sure if I've seen Eddie's answers to the positives of being asexual. I'm not sure if I've seen that. Is that on my Facebook page? I'm not sure that I've noticed that. But it's good. Thank you for telling me. Oh, you like... Oh, in the book you're talking about. Sorry. Thanks, Karen. Karen's on Facebook, by the way. 379. Oh, sorry. Oh, Eddie's. I thought you were talking about... I've got a friend called Eddie who's not actually asexual. But watches my channel. That's why I got completely thrown. Thank you for telling me that. Ah, dear me. Where was I with right, okay. So page 379. 379. What was that? Oh, positives of being asexual. Oh, right. Yes, we've already done positives of being asexual in another video. Yes, in the YouTube video. So we're talking about arousal and attraction on here. But yes, as Karen brought up, I will quickly read out the positives of Eddie's story for being asexual, because everyone wants to know now. But I think I might have read his out on the actual YouTube show. But I'm going to go for it anyway. So I interject with Eddie's story about what the positives of being asexual on page 379 of the book. Karen's got the book. Thank you, Karen. So yes, no unexpected pregnancy, no STIs. Free condoms can be used for their current purpose as water balloons. That's my favourite funny one. Everyday situations can remain uncorrupted by sexual innuendos. Hard drive space that would be filled with porn can be used for The Walking Dead. The pilot of Game of Thrones is much clearer if you're not paying... Oh, the plot of Game of Thrones is much clearer if you're not paying attention to all the hookers' parts. Professional relationship with hot girl in the office is untarnished by creepiness, and less emphasis on physical appearance means I can dress comfortably. So yes, I think I read Eddie's story out on the positives of being asexual on the YouTube show before. I'm pretty sure I definitely remember doing that. So, but yeah, it's good. And I think it's very important on the topic of physical appearance means they can dress more comfortably. So I notice a lot of asexuals, we don't tend to need all the sexy lingerie and all the, I mean, some asexuals, they wear a lot of makeup, but, you know, we don't tend to need all that stuff as much because, you know, we're not trying to sexually butter ourselves up for someone else. However, obviously you can do things just to look good for yourself. I get dressed up if I'm going out for a meal with myself, some of the time, if I'm going to the theatre with myself, because I think it's important to like self-date and have self-love, and you don't need to have someone else in your life to actually do that. Right, so let's go back to the topic for today, which is sexual arousal versus sexual attraction. So, Cassie, I believe they are different. As I understand it, sexual attraction is focused on something outside oneself, most often another person. Maybe sexual arousal is a sensation of one's body with no need for an external anchor. So sexual arousal is focused inside the body, while attraction holds its focus outside it. Now, I really love this. This is on page 386. I really love this answer because I think it's very clever. You know, very clever that they explain that sexual arousal is focused inside the body, whereas attraction holds its focus outside. And I get what the person is saying, because sexual arousal is very much focused on yourself and your kind of like your own kind of pleasure that doesn't have to be linked to someone else. And it's like to do with your own organs, if you know what I mean, your own genitalia, whereas sexual attraction is what you look outwards towards another person. It's what you experience, or in the case of asexuals, usually don't experience, towards another person. So I really like this person's story. You know, like I love it when they say, meanwhile, sexual arousal is the sensation of one's body with no need for an external anchor, meaning that we don't have to have someone else involved to be aroused, feel aroused, or actually relieve the arousal. And I think that's the main difference with asexuals, is we don't need another person involved in order to satisfy ourselves, if you want that to use that word, you know, sexually satisfy ourselves in terms of sexual pleasure, in terms of masturbation, I'm talking about, you know. I mean, obviously some asexuals might use sex toys on themselves, vibrators and stuff like that. I personally have never used a sex toy in my life, so I don't have that experience. But, you know, some asexuals probably do use those type of things, but I'm not really interested in that because it's not something that really fascinates me that much, doing that type of thing. But, you know, I am writing the Asexual Guide to Sex book, and it's quite interesting because I do mention sex toys in there. But I've never personally used one myself, so I do get a bit curious now and again. I think, oh, what would it be like? But I don't really like stuff inside me, so I probably wouldn't get on with it. Yes, so let's go to 5 Mark 2N. This person's a friend of mine, actually. 408. So I wasn't gonna do any more, but I'm gonna carry on because I think it's good. 408. So this is really right. So what is the difference between sexual arousal and sexual attraction? So different, at least slightly. I believe that sexual arousal is being aroused in some form or shape, such as thinking of a scene a person would like, seeing someone they like, etc. While I believe sexual attraction is to find someone sexually attractive, to think about a sexual scene with just them. And I think this person does describe that very well, actually. Sexual arousal is basically where, you know, they've described it as a scene a person would like, seeing something they like, you know. So they're kind of saying like it's a sense, because we have senses, you know, like hearing, taste, sight, sound, smell. These are all the senses, and you know, and senses can get evoked, which means they can get aroused, right? You can rouse, they usually, you know, rouse the person's interest, for example, rouse the person's like taste buds, you know. So, you know, there's aroused and roused. Roused is when something kind of like comes into being, something is kind of made. You're arousing a person's curiosity. So you can have aroused sensations in the body, but you can feel aroused by something that someone like did or said, in the terms of like it's kind of like you know, an attractive quality about them. I think that's what they're trying to say, that it's like a scene they would like to see someone, so they're kind of aroused and drawn to that person. Whereas they believe sexual attraction is to find someone specifically just attractive. So it's like a sexual arousal, they're describing it as someone's in a scene where sexual attraction is kind of like where you're with yourself and kind of looking, and then or just on your own, and then the sexual attractions towards a person. I think that's what they're saying. So it's kind of interesting. Hi Rich, nice to see you on Facebook. Lots of love. I hope you're feeling better, because you weren't feeling very well. So anyway, I think that's very interesting, the way they liken arousal to an actual picture, if you know what I mean. So let's see what else there is in here. Like, I was going to suggest that I carry on for a little bit longer. So Claire, Evelyn, right? So sexual arousal versus sexual attraction. Are they the same or different? Claire says, no, they are not the same. I feel sexual arousal is a biological reaction of the sex organs. It is simply the body doing what it's made to do. The brain, however, is what matters. And I really do want to discuss this, actually, because it's very different with asexuals, right? Our brain is wired differently. We think differently, which makes us act differently and behave differently. And for me personally, like, when I experience arousal, is not linked to needing to do anything with a specific person. And and for me, when it's 2013, if you can picture it, there was this Bangladesh guy that I was in a relationship with, and it only lasted 3 weeks because he cheated on me. It was dreadful. And during those 3 weeks, I was forcing myself to do stuff sexually with him just to please him, but I couldn't actually bring myself to have sex with him. And you should never force yourself to do something with someone, right? This was before I found out I was asexual in 2014, because this was 2013. And so, I was trying to push myself to do as much kind of like naked stuff as possible, but without actually having the sex. And, it was my brain that I recognized just wouldn't allow me to have sex. Like, it didn't matter how aroused this guy could get me through kissing. My brain was just like, I can't have sex. I can't have sex. I can't have sex, because I just don't want it. And so as an asexual person, I sometimes think that your brain is very, very different to what your physical responses are. Whereas kind of a sexual person, a heterosexual, for example, they would kind of like be having their mind and their body as one. Their mind would say, I want sex. Their body would say, I want sex. Their body would say, I want sex. Their mind would say, I want sex. It's kind of like they're directly linked. Whereas with an asexual person, our mind and our body can be doing two separate things, can be having two separate experiences, can be maybe even wanting two separate things. Because if a person is really aroused, it could make them feel like the urge to do something about it. Whereas the brain could say, yeah, but I'm not interested in having sex with someone. And so, you can have this kind of battle between what you physically feel like in your genitalia versus what your mind is saying do or do not do. And so for me, this is when I really understood in 2013, before I found out I was asexual, I really understood the difference between, I guess, but it was really weird because I didn't think I noticed the difference between arousal and sexual attraction until I entered the asexual realm in 2014. But at that specific time, I didn't know I was asexual, but I knew that I had this arousal in my body going on. I thought it was sexual attraction at the time. I didn't know it wasn't sexual attraction, but I just thought at that time that it wasn't enough to want to act on it. But then when I came to the conclusion of being asexual in 2014, I realized I didn't want to act on it. I didn't actually have sexual attraction because I didn't think I wanted sex with a guy. It was because I experienced high levels of arousal at that time, but it was only with the hindsight of discovering I was asexual in the asexual community that I was able to separate the arousal in such a way from the sexual attraction. Liam on YouTube. I was reading an article about asexuality, and the writer wrote, why would someone choose this lifestyle? It was a religious article. How could someone cheat on such a good person? Oh, bless you. Thank you for that, Liam. Yes, there is a religious article that's going around, but you have to understand, well, Liam, I guess, knows, and a lot of you know already, that asexuality is definitely not a lifestyle choice. It's got nothing to do with lifestyle choices. but there was an article I saw, I don't know if it was the same one, and they were basically, oh, it wasn't about, I was saying they were demisexual. It was an article saying that demisexual is basically waiting for a deep connection with someone, waiting for the right person to come along before you have sex. And it was linked to religion, and that's not what demisexual is. A demisexual cannot categorically experience sexual attraction unless a deep emotional bond has been formed, which is not the same as having a standard in a relationship saying I'm going to wait till I have a deep emotional bond to actually have sex with someone. They're two completely different things. So if anyone has seen that religious article about demisexuality and the fact they're saying demisexuality is something from years ago that was happening, and basically, you know, it's just us modern woo-woo people, you know, describing it now, it's a load of rubbish. Demisexuality is a genuine sexual orientation that is the lack of sexual attraction unless until a deep emotional bond has been formed. It's not a choice they have. They can't experience it. A true demisexual, someone who's not like making rubbish up, right? Someone who's a true demisexual, they can't experience sexual attraction. Usually that until the emotional bond's been formed, and usually it has to be reciprocated and maintained and sustained in order to keep that attraction going, right? Because I run the grey asexual and demisexual dating group on Facebook, I know these things, right? I ask their advice and their opinions, and you know, so it's very important that you know asexuality is definitely not a lifestyle choice. You can't choose to be asexual. You can't choose to put it on like a coat or something. It doesn't work like that. You know, otherwise bisexuals would put on a heterosexual coat, and heterosexual people would put on a homosexual coat, and you know what I mean, you'd be swapping your coats around to different sexualities, you know. So you know, asexuality is not a lifestyle choice. It's a genuine sexual orientation. It has got nothing to do with religion, and it's not to do with the fact, oh, you're waiting for the right person to come along. That's absolute load of rubbish, right? It's got nothing to do with it. If you want to wait till the right person comes along before you have sex, that's fine, but don't call that a sexuality. That is your standard. That is what you want in a relationship. That is a standard you set for yourself. A standard is some type of rule that you will abide by until, and obviously in a relationship you might have standards, and they're kind of rules and conditions you want to live by and abide by in order to provide the best conditions for you to survive and thrive in, right? That's not the same as a sexual orientation, you know? So I was very disappointed to see that article from the religious point of view on demisexuality, because it's completely untrue. They paint the fact that demisexual just means that you're waiting for the right person to come along, you know, to form a deep emotional connection with them before you have sex with them, because that's your preference, basically. It's your standard. It's what you want to do. You don't just want to get into casual relationships. So I just wanted to like kind of kill that myth and stereotype, and like just inform people if there's anyone on this channel that didn't already know that. So, you know, I think it's like Claire says, sexual arousal is a biological reaction to sex organs. And then the brain, however, is what matters most, because I was talking about this Bangladesh guy, and I was saying that back then in 2013, I actually could tell that my brain was different to my body. My body can really hurt sometimes from being aroused a lot, if I'm honest. It's kind of a weird feeling. It can kind of pound and it can hurt, you know, so it's not pleasurable then. It gets to the point where this is becoming uncomfortable for me now, right? I'm not so bad lately, maybe because I don't get that intimate with guys anymore, but and I haven't had a boyfriend, actual proper boyfriend, for a long time in person. So, you know, and, you know, I had a British guy a couple of, 2019, I think that was, a couple of years ago now. But yeah, but like I was saying, you know, it was only when I was with this Bangladesh guy that I realized that my brain doesn't want the stuff that my genitalia is doing, because I was like kind of like getting really aroused and to the point of hurting down there, but my brain was like, I just don't want sex. And I'm like, oh my god, my brain is like telling me something completely different to kind of the signals that my body would give out usually if someone did want sex. And so that's really weird. But but it wasn't until I came to the conclusion in 2014 that I am asexual, is that I realized that the actual thing of the genitalia being aroused and the mind not wanting sex was also the fact that the genitalia arousal was arousal, just like it wasn't sexual attraction, but I didn't know that at the time. And so I think when you're new to asexuality, or when you're discovering more about your body and yourself, it's very important to kind of be aware of what you're thinking about in your mind, and monitor yourself when you're kissing or having physical intimacy as to actually what's going on. Are you thinking about having sex with this person, or are you just, actually you want it, or are you because you're attracted to them, or are you just thinking, oh is this going to lead to sex? Because at the end of the day, if it's with a sexual person, that's probably what they'll be on their mind, right? Or are you just thinking, gosh, I'm glad that I'm not having sex right now, and I'm really glad I've got a person who doesn't want that? Or kind of like, are you actually experiencing that you might want to try it? It's very important to be self-aware in life and in your asexual journey, so that you can discover more about yourself, you can discover more about intimate relationships, you can discover more about what you might like and what you don't like, But life is always a journey. Sometimes we don't actually know what we like or not like until we actually get into a relationship with someone, or not, as the case might be. She might not never want a relationship, like Liam doesn't ever want a relationship, for example, who's on YouTube now. So, but it's just good to be aware of your own body, to know these things, and to understand that asexual mind is usually very different to a sexual mind, and our mind can be very different to what our body wants. So your brain might not be coherent with your body in terms of what it thinks it wants, right? So, and that's okay, that is like natural for you to be like that, I know that not all of you will be like that, but for some of you, right? Let's see if I can get Waywalker's story. This is really good. So this is on page 428 of the Asexual Perspectives book, if you're reading along at home. So yes. So arousal is not the same as attraction. Arousal can be measured physically in a lab. Human bodies tend to like to ensure the continuation of their genetics. So arousal can happen whether or not the human in possession of the body wills it. Any victims, this is quite difficult reading this bit, by the way, any victims of sexual assault or abuse, male or female, or any gender, can tell you that this is true. The body can be aroused even while the soul and mind and core being is in an abject terror and rejecting all things relating to the situation. Since arousal is a physical effect of touch, it cannot be the same thing as attraction, which does not require touch to exist. Now, the only thing I'd say that it's very valid points, and it is true. Like people who have gone through sexual abuse, they can feel very guilty that they got aroused when someone was abusing them, but it can happen because the genitalia can still be aroused and react to arousal, right? Be in a state of arousal. So, but we have to understand that it's, the person doesn't need to blame themselves. It's just something that can happen to them. And I think it makes things a lot more difficult and harder for them. It's hard for me even to talk about this, because I get really upset thinking that people have been hurt. Liam, the article I read actually said, according to the church, there only one sexuality, and that was heterosexuality. The title was the problem with being asexual. Oh, that's not nice. Well, yeah, I haven't seen that article then, Liam, but it's just rubbish. There are loads of sexualities. If people don't want to admit it, then it's just ignorance, isn't it, to be quite honest? Going back to this person here, Waywalker, yeah, and obviously something that I've said isn't true on this, when they've said since arousal is a physical effect of touch, it cannot be the same thing as attraction, which does not require touch to exist. I can get aroused without no touching whatsoever. I don't need to touch my bits. I don't need any physical touching whatsoever to feel arousal. Nothing. I can just get aroused, sat down. Thing about kissing, that's it. I don't need any touching, right? So it actually isn't true for every asexual that that arousal needs touch to exist. It really doesn't. For some people that might be true, quite a lot of people probably, but this isn't true of everyone. And I think people have to understand that there's all different types of asexuals all across the asexual spectrum, and people's minds and bodies work differently, and that's all right. Let me see if I can find if Juanita answered this question. So yes, we need to answer it on page 466 of the printed version. This is Asexual Perspective if you want to grab a copy from Amazon or anything, by the way. Right, so Juanita, no, attraction again is an energetic thing. This is very interesting, not a physical thing, and sexual arousal is very physical. You can have an energetic attraction that then inspires physical arousal. Again, attraction happens prior to arousal. Now, that is really interesting, isn't it? Because, like I said, not every asexual is the same. And clearly, I am not the same as these asexuals because, for me, I don't have to have any sexual attraction. I don't have to have any attraction towards any person because I can get aroused just by thinking about kissing. I don't have to think about anyone involved with kissing. A lot of the time I don't. I just think about the word kissing and it makes my bits aroused just by thinking about kissing and talking about kissing. Yes, it's kissing. So for me personally, I don't need that. So I don't need physical touching to get aroused. And I also, don't experience sexual attraction and don't need that to get aroused. So this person, like I said, they believe that sexual attraction inspires physical arousal, but attraction happens prior to arousal. But that actually isn't the case with me because I don't have to be attracted to anyone or think about being attracted to anyone. And it also implies that you have to be attracted to someone in order to experience arousal, which you really don't at all, So everyone's different and we have to understand that people's bodies work differently, people's minds work differently. I know remarkably that asexual minds are very different to the general population of sexual minds, where our mind just is different. It's wide different. It's like not geared towards experiencing sexual attraction in the main, So anyway, Karen's got to go. I've got to go in a minute because I've been on here anyway. Hate to say goodbye, but I must. Love and light, my friend. Lots of love to you, Karen. Lots of love on Facebook. Take care. Have a good night or day, wherever you are. But yes, I think I'm going to conclude tonight's stream anyway. But yes, thank you all for watching on YouTube as well. Thank you, Sparky. Sparky's lovely. They are not asexual, but they've got an asexual partner. And then we've got Liam. Lots of love, Liam. And then Karen and Rich on Facebook. I know there's someone else or other people been watching on YouTube as well. Lots of love to you. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Post an emoji if you're on Facebook. Don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already on YouTube, and hit that bell icon so you get notified of every time I go live like now, posting a video. If you're on Facebook or if you're if you're not basically watching the Facebook page, please like Facebook page, please follow the Facebook page, and please underneath the video follow my live videos on Facebook. If you click the follow button under the live video itself, you'll get notified of every time I go live on Facebook as well. So yes, I've really enjoyed tonight's Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month, chatting to you about the difference between sexual arousal and sexual attraction. Just to sum up, basically sexual arousal is your feeling in your genitalia, which most people believe has to have physical touch in order to happen, but it really doesn't. You can actually be sexually aroused just by thinking something that makes you feel aroused in your genitalia using the power of your mind. Not everyone can do that, but it is the case for some people. So you do not need physical touching, but in the majority of cases, people need physical stimulus to get the genitals aroused, right? And then sexual attraction is when you are attracted to a specific person sexually, so you want to have sex with them. So you look at someone and think, I want to have sex with you, or some people, right? So arousal is a feeling in the genitalia, attraction is towards a specific person. I hope you found this video useful, helpful, insightful. Like I said, if you have, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and like and share. And I will love to see you on the next Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month videos and live streams. Take care. Lots of love, and I will see you soon. Take care. Thank you for taking part. Thank you for the thumbs up. Bye. Lots of love. Bye. Bye on Facebook.